The video you're about to watch is just a small part of a much larger story, and we discuss that entire story on our audio podcast, the Islamic History Podcast. We cover a variety of topics ranging from the lives of the four righteous caliphs to the Bosnian War to the history of Palestine. So, if you like deep dives and in-depth storytelling about the events that have shaped the Muslim world, subscribe to the audio version of the Islamic History Podcast. And by the way, it's 100% free. Look for the link in the description box. Who are the Turks? The people we now call the Turks most likely originated in the Altai Mountains in western Mongolia. But Turks are not Mongolian and belong to a different linguistic group. The Chinese called these nomadic people Tukiyu or Tuchue, and this is likely where the word Turk comes from. We discussed these proto-Turks in our series on the Umayyad dynasty. The Oguz, one of these early Turkish groups, eventually settled in the eastern provinces of the Umayyad Caliphate, primarily in Khorasan. Over time, the Oguz accepted Islam. Many of those Turks who did not want to live under Islamic law moved west to the Byzantine Empire. Another group of Turks, called the Karakhnids, also accepted Islam. The Karakhnids established a dynasty near the Tian Sha Mountains of Central Asia. They played a significant role in the spread of various Turkish-related languages in Transoxiana. In time, these Turkish languages replaced Persian as the dominant language in the area. At some point during the 9th century, a warlord named Seljuk broke off from the Karakhnids. He created a new settlement near the Sirdarya River in what is now Kazakhstan. 100 years later, these Seljuk Turks came down from the steppes of Central Asia and swept through Anatolia. They defeated the Byzantines in 1071 at the Battle of Manzikert. This victory established the Seljuks as the new power in eastern Anatolia. Meanwhile, the Byzantines went into a downward spiral and would eventually lose most of Anatolia to the Seljuks. The Seljuk Turks were not done. From their capital in Nishapur, Iran, they continued to spread, conquering much of what we now call Persia, Anatolia, the Caucasus, and Iraq. With the Seljuk conquests, Sunni Islam overtook Shia Islam as the primary faith in the region. 6 years after the Battle of Manzikert, a Seljuk prince named Sulayman declared his independence from the empire. Prince Sulayman, a cousin of the Seljuk Sultan Malik Shah, founded the Seljuk Sultanate of Rum. The Seljuk Sultanate of Rum would eventually face two of the greatest threats to Islam. The first threat came from Europe. The Byzantine Empire did not go away after the Battle of Manzikert. Though they were Orthodox Christians, the Byzantine Emperor reached out to the Catholic Pope based in Italy. He wanted help expelling the Turks from Anatolia and retaking the land for Christianity. The Pope responded by putting out a call to his followers to take up the cross and free Anatolia and Jerusalem from the infidels. The Pope's message was heard loud and clear. Waves of Christian warriors poured across the Bosporus Strait into Anatolia. Most of these warriors came from France, but many were also from Italy, England, Germany, and Spain. The Muslims at the time called them Franks, but we now call them Crusaders. The Seljuk Sultanate of Rum was too busy fighting the original Seljuks and were overwhelmed by the Crusaders. The Crusaders captured large swaths of territory in Anatolia before moving south into Syria and Palestine. It would be nearly 90 years before the Muslims expelled most of the Crusaders from the Middle East. We discussed the story of the Crusades in our series on the life of Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. By now, crusading was losing its appeal as European monarchs chose to focus on things closer to home. This change in attitude allowed the Seljuk Sultanate of Rum to recover and start expanding again. In 1176, the Byzantines made one last desperate attempt to regain their lost territory in Anatolia at the Battle of Myriokephalon. The Seljuk Sultanate of Rum thrashed the Byzantines, who would never again threaten the Muslims in Anatolia. All the Byzantines had left in Anatolia were a few forts along the coast. Over the next 30 years, the Seljuk Sultanate of Rum became the dominant force in Anatolia. They played a key role in international trade, dominating the famous global network known as the Silk Road. We mentioned earlier how the Seljuk Sultanate of Rum faced two major challenges. The Crusaders were actually the lesser of these two challenges. Their biggest challenge came from a land far to the east. In the 13th century, the Mongols arrived. By the time the Mongols arrived in Anatolia, they had already captured much of Iran, Georgia, and southern Russia. Frightened survivors fled to the Seljuk Sultanate of Rum, bringing horrifying stories of brutal, unstoppable warriors on horseback who destroyed everything in their path. Before long, the Seljuk Sultanate of Rum faced off with the Mongols. Their armies clashed at the Battle of Kosdag in 1242, and the Mongols came away with the victory. The Seljuk Sultanate of Rum had no choice but to submit and become a vassal of the Mongols. And so they would remain for the rest of their existence. With the Mongols controlling them, the Seljuk Sultanate of Rum slowly disintegrated. The once proud state that had stood against the Crusaders and beaten the Byzantines crumbled into a bunch of small, independent territories called beyliks.